Hi, you all. We're going to continue reading Harry Potter. Today is Friday, March 15th. March, let's not go backwards. It's May 15th. Hello. May 15th. And when we were reading the last time, Harry and Ron had upset Hermione and she'd started crying and ran off, correct? Yeah, and so she's in the bathroom crying, and it's Halloween Day, and we're getting ready to see what happens on Halloween Day. Hermione didn't turn up for the next class and wasn't seen all afternoon. Harry and Ron overheard Parvati Patil telling her friend Lavender that Hermione was crying in the girls' bathroom and wanted to be left alone. Ron looked still more awkward at this, but a moment later they entered the great hall where the Halloween decorations put Hermione out of their minds. 1,000 live bats fluttered from the walls and ceiling, while 1,000 more swept over the tables in low black clouds, making the candles in the pumpkins stutter. The feast appeared suddenly on the golden plates as it had at the start of the banquet. Harry was just helping himself to a baked potato when Professor Quirrell came sprinting into the hall, his turban askew and terror on his face. Everyone stared as he reached Professor Dumbledore's chair slumped against the table and gasped, "Troll! Troll in the dungeons! I thought you should know!" And then he sank to the floor in a dead faint. Oh no, there's a troll in the school. There was an uproar. It took several firecrackers exploding from the end of the Professor Dumbledore's wand to silence everybody. "Prefects," he rumbled, "lead your houses back to the dormitories immediately." Percy was in his element. "Follow me. Stick together, first years. No need to fear the troll if you follow my orders. Stay close behind me now. Make way. First years coming through. Excuse me, I'm a prefect." "How could a troll get in?" Harry asked as they climbed the stairs. "Don't ask me. They're supposed to be really stupid," said Ron. "Maybe Peeves let it in for a Halloween joke." They passed different groups of people hurrying in different directions. As they jostled their way through the crowd of confused Hufflepuffs, Harry suddenly grabbed Ron's arm. "I've just thought... Hermione." "What about her?" "She doesn't know about the troll." Ron bit his lip. "Oh, all right," he snapped, "but Percy better not see us." Ducking down, they joined the Hufflepuffs going the other way, slipped down a deserted side corridor, and hurried off toward the girls' bathroom. They had just turned toward the corner when they heard quick footsteps behind them. "Peeves!" hissed Ron, pulling Harry behind a large stone griffin. Peering around it, however, they saw not Peeves, but Snape. Not... Okay, he crossed the corridor and disappeared from view. "What's he doing?" Harry whispered. "Why isn't he down in the dungeons with the rest of the teachers?" "Search me." Quiet as possible, they crept along the next corridor after Snape's fading footprints. "He's headed for the third floor." But Ron held up his hand. "Can you smell something?" Harry sniffed, and a foul stench reached his nostrils. Stench means it smells really bad. It smelled like a mixture of old socks and a toilet that no one seems to clean. And then they heard it, a low grunting and the shuffling footsteps of gigantic feet. Ron pointed. At the end of a passage to the left, something huge was moving toward them. They shrank into the shadows and watched as it emerged into a patch of moonlight. It was a horrible sight. 12 feet tall, its skin was a dull granite gray. Its great lumpy body like a boulder with its small bald head perched up on top like a coconut. It had short legs thick as tree trunks with flat, horny feet. The smell coming from it was incredible. It was holding a huge wooden club, which dragged along the floor because its arms were so long. The troll stopped next to a doorway and peered inside. It waggled its long ears, making up its tiny mind, and then slouched slowly into the room. "The key's in the lock," Harry muttered. "We could lock it in." "Good idea," said Ron nervously. They edged toward the door, mouse open. With one great leap, Harry managed to grab the key, slam the door, and lock it. Yes! Flushed with victory, they started to run back up the passage, but as they reached the corner, they heard something that made their hearts stop. A high, petrified scream, and it was coming from the chamber that they'd just chained up. "Oh no," said Ron, pale as the bloody baron. "It's the girls' bathroom." "Hermione," they said together. It was the last thing they wanted to do, but what choice did they have? Wheeling around, they sprinted back to the door and turned the key, fumbling in their panic. Harry pulled the door open and they ran inside. Hermione Granger was shrinking against the wall opposite, looking as if she was going to faint. The troll was advancing on her, knocking the sinks off the wall as it went. "Confuse it," Harry said. desperately to Ron, and then seizing a tap, he threw it as hard as he could against the wall. The troll stopped a few feet from Hermione. It lumbered around, blinking dumb, to see what had made the noise. Its mean little eyes saw Harry. It hesitated, and then it made for him instead, lifting its club. "Oi, pea-brain!" yelled Ron from the other side of the chamber, and then he threw a metal pipe at it. The troll didn't even seem to notice the pipe hitting its shoulder, but it heard the yell and paused again, turning its ugly snout toward Ron, giving Harry time to run around it. "Come on, run, run!" Harry yelled at Hermione, trying to pull her toward the door, but she wouldn't move. She was flat against the wall, her mouth open with terror. The shouting and the echo seemed to be driving the troll berserk. It roared again, and it started toward Ron, who was nearest and had no way to escape. Harry then did something that was both very brave and very stupid. He took a great running jump and managed to fasten his arms around the troll's neck from behind. The troll couldn't feel Harry hanging there, but even a troll will notice if you stick a long bit of wood up its nose. And Harry's wand had been in his hand when he jumped. It had gone straight up one of the troll's nostrils. These are nostrils, the holes in your nose. Howling with pain, the troll twisted and flailed with its cub, Harry clinging on for dear life. Any second, the troll was going to rip him off or catch a terrible blow with the club. Hermione had sunk to the floor in fright. Ron pulled out his own wand, not knowing what he was going to do with him. He heard himself cry the first spell that came to his head. Wingardium Leviosa. The cub flew suddenly out of the troll's hand, rose high up into the air, turned slowly over, and dropped with a sickening crack onto its owner's head. The troll swayed on the spot and then fell flat on the face, with a thud that made the whole room tremble. Harry got to his feet. He was shaking and out of breath. Ron was standing there with his wand still raised, staring at what he had done. It was Hermione who spoke first. "Is it dead?" "I don't think so," said Harry. "I think it's just been knocked out." He bent down and pulled the wand out of the troll's nose. It was covered in what looked like lumpy gray glue. Ugh, troll boogers. He wiped it on the troll's trousers. A sudden slamming and loud footsteps made the three of them look up. They hadn't realized what racket they had been making, but of course someone downstairs must have heard the crashes and the troll's roars. A moment later, Professor McGonagall had come bursting into the room, closely followed by Snape, with Quirrell bringing up the rear. Quirrell took one look at the troll, let out a faint whimper, and sat down on the toilet, clutching his heart. Snape bent over the troll. Professor McGonagall was looking at Ron and Harry. Harry had never seen her so angry. Her lips were white. Hopes of winning 50 points for Gryffindor faded quickly from Harry's mind. "What on earth were you thinking of? You're lucky you weren't killed. Why aren't you in your dormitory?" Snape gave Harry a swift, piercing look. Harry looked at the floor. He wished Ron would put his wand down. And then a small voice came out of the shadows. "Please, Professor McGonagall, they were looking for me." "Miss Granger." Hermione had managed to get to her feet at last. "I went looking for the troll because I thought that I could deal with it on my own, because I've read about them." Ron dropped his wand. Hermione Granger? Telling a lie to a teacher? If they hadn't found me, I'd be dead now. Harry stuck his wand up its nose, and Ron knocked it out with its own club. They didn't have time to fetch anyone. It was about to finish me off when they arrived. Harry and Ron tried to look as though the story wasn't new to them. "Well, in that case," said Professor McGonagall, staring at the three of them, "Miss Granger, you foolish girl! How could you think of tackling a mountain troll on your own?" Hermione hung her head. Harry was speechless. Hermione was the last person to do anything against the rules, and here she was pretending she had, just to get them out of trouble. It was as if Snape had started handing out treats. "Miss Granger, 5 points will be taken for Gryffindor for this," said Professor McGonagall. "I'm very disappointed in you. If you're not hurt at all, you better get off to the Gryffindor towers. Students are finishing the feast in their houses." Hermione left. Professor McGonagall turned to Harry and Ron. "Well, I will say that you were lucky, but not many first years could have taken on a full-grown troll. You each win Gryffindor 5 points. Professor Dumbledore will be informed of this. You may go." They hurried out of the chamber and didn't speak at all until they climbed 2 floors up. It was a relief to be away from the smell of the troll, quite apart from anything else. "We should have gotten more than 10 points. 5, you mean, once she's taken off Hermione's. Good of her to get us out of trouble like that," Ron admitted. "Mind you, we did save her." "Okay, go bring them upstairs. I'll be up there in a minute." "Okay. Go ahead." "She might not have needed saving if we hadn't locked that thing in there with her," Harry said. They reached the portrait of the fat lady. "Pig snout," they said, and then entered. The common room was packed and noisy. Everyone was eating their food that had been set up. Hermione, however, stood alone by the door waiting for them. There was a very embarrassed pause, and then none of them looking at each other, they all said thanks and hurried off to get their plates. From that moment on, Hermione Granger became their friends. There are some things you can't share without ending up liking each other, and knocking out a 12-foot mountain troll was one of them. That's funny, huh? That's important, though, because Hermione is supposed to be a big part of the story, and they have to be friends for that to happen, right? And I know the lighting is kind of bad in here, but it's getting dark outside because it's going to storm, so. I'm going to pause this and start a new video because I think my kiddo might have went outside. I'll be right back.